Like, share, subscribe. Live for Love TV. Awesome!
Like, share, and subscribe. Live for Love TV. Oh.
Welcome back to Live for Love TV. Today's the 4th day of the 2nd month of the 23rd year inside the 21st century. Hope everyone's doing extremely well out there. Today I'm going to talk again about inheritance, as I've spoken about, I think a couple of years ago, or maybe a year and a half ago when I first started the channel. It's not a couple of years, a year and a half ago I spoke about inheritance. Now, I want to talk about inheritance again today because I think that a lot of people have made a big error into what is the most important thing that you can leave to your offspring, to your children, to your family. We somehow believe that if we gain enough possessions and we put our possessions together, and then when our time comes we write our will, or whether we write a will or not, our offspring will pick up the things that we leave for them. But my experience has been that is a very poor way of looking at life. The most important thing that we need to leave to our offspring, to our children, to our families, is a little bit of this. This is the greatest resource that any human being will have so long as he's on this planet. Because thinking that you can get other resources like land, houses and cars and jewelry and all this stuff, it's all very well. You work your whole life to say build a house or get some land and build a house. And the minute you died, not only are they fighting amongst themselves and prepared to, go as far as they want to hurt one another, kill one another, never talk to one another over what the parents have actually tried to give to the children. They go even further than that, and if they do get on, they say, look, they just want to sell it. So somebody's built a house. It's taken them 40, 50 years to do that, to get back to the place where they came from, maybe, let's say, for instance, and build that house. And then the first thing the children do is get together and sell it and go and buy what? What do they go and buy? Maybe, I don't know, maybe they can buy another house. I don't know. What do they go and buy? I don't know. Go and run around with the money and looking important amongst their boyfriends and girlfriends. It's a very, very sad state of affairs. I'm saying that if you had left this first, the most important resource that a human being has, then maybe your offspring will grow up with a bit more intelligence and understand what houses are worth, what land is worth. Who in their right mind would have land on this planet and sell it to buy anything else but a bigger piece of land or another piece of land? Who would sell a house unless they're going to buy another house? Or for what reason? These are some of the greatest physical resources you're ever going to have, outside of the greatest resource of all. But this is what people do. And this is because I say the generation before them have not taught them anything. They've not taught them anything. So all they know is that materialistic understanding of the world, and then they just go and ruin everything that their parents have done for the X amount of years of their life. It's a very, very sad situation. I've watched it time in, time again. I've seen people go back to Africa, to Ghana, to Nigeria, to Kenya, and build these great houses. And their children are in the diaspora, Canada, America, Holland, wherever. And the first thing they do is, as a parent dies, is go there and do their best and get rid of the place. They sell it immediately, almost as quickly as they can. They've sold it. No legacy whatsoever. And we talk often about generational wealth. People like to say, oh, I want to build generational wealth for my children. If you haven't taught them anything, there's no such thing as generational wealth. Generational wealth is teaching people in the mind first before you give them anything else. All the people you hear is talking about generational wealth, their children and offspring understand what their legacies of what they brought up, and they don't instantly sell off what their parents have spent a generation to get. But you don't teach them anything, and there's no such thing as generational wealth as far as I can see. So try and put this in people's heads. You've got people going to let's say Ghana, just an example of what I know, Nigeria, and building these great houses, or the Caribbean, Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados, whatsoever. And they say they're gonna leave an inheritance for their children. Yeah, they leave an inheritance for their children when they pass away. But here's the funny thing is that they build maybe a humongous house, and nobody is a citizen of those countries. Nobody they leave the house to is a citizen of any of those countries. They haven't got their citizenship. So they can't even stay there if they wanted to. You understand? I'm not saying they're going to want to, but if they were taught very young what the direction of their parents' life is, then maybe they would have understood. I mean, I grew up understanding and hearing that a lot of people left the Caribbean to go to Western countries to build themselves up for 5 years. They had a sort of 5 year plan. 5 year plan, which is fair enough. And you go somewhere and things don't work out the way that you think they're going to work out. Then you start having families, all that. So, what I'd like to know, if the parents are going in a certain direction, the children are born while they're on that direction. What direction do the children go in? Do they continue to go in that lost direction? Because that's lost. 5 years plan, and you end up 30, 40 years somewhere, and then the children now think that that's where they're from and don't have any plan to go from where you came from. So they haven't carried on the generation. So that's why I was talking about generational wealth. The generational understanding is completely broken down. Most of these people don't feel they've got any connection whatsoever with the place where their parents came from. But their parents only left for 5 years. So we got a great disconnect between the generations, as Bob Marley would say, the generation gap. We've got a massive disconnect between the understanding of how our lives are supposed to go, or how people's lives are supposed to go, and how they're supposed to continue. What's the continuum? As I said, if you don't want to get, let's say your parents come from a country outside of the diaspora, and you don't want to get, let's say, a citizenship of where they come from, you can get citizenship for somewhere else. But if you stay where you are, or where you were put, I'd have to say, or where you were born, or where you were put, then you hopefully you're doing very well there. I'm hoping you're doing really well there, because if you're struggling and suffering, then you really need to check what's happening upstairs in the old cranium. Because if you have options to do other things and you don't do them, then you have to start checking yourself and wondering what's happening to you. Yeah. So I'm saying this because this is the problem. I can go all over the internet and see people talking about generation wealth. There's these intellectual people talking about generation wealth. We need to have generational wealth like other races. We need to. What are you talking about? What do you mean? You can't tell me that. What do you mean generational wealth? Generational wealth comes with understanding, with consciousness, intelligence. You can't have generational wealth just physically, just giving somebody a company, or just giving somebody, all these people you see with generation wealth, they know their lineage. They understand. They've been trained to do business from the day they were born. They understand what's going to go on. They're not going to sell their business. They're not going to sell their mother and father's hard work company. They're not going to sell their mother and father's house, or their mother and father's land that they work so hard for. None of them will do this. None of these would do. Nobody who has generational wealth from their families would ever go down that road, because they have an understanding of what it is. But a lot of people are getting stuff and they're selling it on, and it's frightening when you look and you think these people actually think that they've got some sort of intelligence, and then they have the cheek to talk about generational wealth. Then they start talking about their own children, say, oh well, I'm going to leave this for my children, I'm going to leave this for my son, I'm going to leave this for my daughter. But you just sold everything your mum and dad had. Whether you've bought a house or not, you've sold everything your mum and dad had. And instead of adding to it so you've got more to give to your children, you've sold it, and now you're talking about what you've got you're going to give them. What do you think they're going to do with it? They're going to do exactly what you did. Exactly what you did. You have to start to take yourself seriously, and as I said, as we've seen throughout the African continent, throughout all the places on the world where the physical resources in the ground are the most. If you don't have this resource, you're going to get outdone every time, because the person who has this resource is the one that's going to use you to get your physical resource in the ground, and he's going to use you and abuse you and even kill you. Which is what we see now. People talking about, oh, the Chinese are going into the Caribbean, the Chinese are going into Africa. Before that, it was the Spanish and the French and the English and how are all these people been able to do this over physical resources? They're using a certain type of thinking, whether you think it's right or not, whether you think it's evil the way they're using their cranium or not. The truth is, you have to use yours to defend yourself. You have to use yours to exploit your own resources before somebody else exploits your resources. I always say that if you have a full glass of water, nobody can really add anything to it. But if the glass is empty, anybody can put anything in it. So we need to fulfill ourselves and fill up our minds with some sort of consciousness and sense, so that nobody can come in and start to abuse us with their resources. for our resources, should I say. Let me correct myself. Abuse us for the resources that we claim is ours because we live on that land. It's happening generation after generation after generation. And we keep selling out, whether it's our, and people blame the leaders. That's not the leaders, the people, everybody. We all sell out. For that, hot cash, we all sell out. Hot cash, we've got to get that money. I need to get that money so I can live a certain type of life. What type of life is it going to live? You're going to die anyway. If you're talking about generational wealth, educate yourself to the highest level you possibly could make yourself, and then educate your children, educate your women, educate your men, educate your cousins, your uncles, educate everybody you can, so that everyone understands. It's like all the other nations understand that when you talk about generational wealth, it comes with a consciousness first and then a physical aspect afterwards, and therefore it can't be lost. Can't be lost. But anyway, this may sound like a bit of a rant, but this is how I just got up today and I felt, my God, look at this thing. Keep this, just yap all day long with people in this generational wealth. I'm going to leave this to my children. I'm going to leave that to I'm working hard to leave this to my children. Yeah, it sounds good. It sounds good, but we can only have to look back a few generations and we can see how much stuff has been left to us or to other people our age group or even older, and how quickly it's disappeared out of our hands. Same thing's going to happen to your children, trust me, if you haven't educated them properly. Anyway, see you soon. Take care. Live for Love TV.
This is Live for Love TV. Live for Love TV. Yes, I am.
One step more. One step more. One step more. Until you reach your goals. One step more. Save them soul. One step more. One step more. How good it is to reach the
Live for Love TV. This is Live for Love TV.